Jimmy Dore recently came out against Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for her endorsement of Andrew Cuomo. I have listened to his critique, the responses from people like Sam Seder, and read the angry comments of people who agree with Jimmy Dore. I think the preponderance of evidence and logic is on Seder's side and Jimmy Dore's arguments don't really add up. First off, let's just get one thing straight. Jimmy Dore's is mischaracterizing Ocasio-Cortez when he implies that her backing of Andrew Cuomo is some sort of radical shift to blue no matter who. Here is a video of her sharing this sentiment months ago.
In 2020, should you win in November, in 2020, can you say right now that you will unequivocally back the Democratic nominee in opposition to President Trump? Meaning, you know, if this were 2016, would it be a guarantee that Hillary Clinton would have gotten
Look at it. Before Harlow can even finish her question, right? Like, ask the question, will you support the Democratic nominee? Yeah. Wait, I want to give the other scenario, which I'm trying to bait you into. And she's already answered the question. But Harlow has such an agenda here that she has to continue on. Go ahead. Go back just a little bit.
2016, would it be a guarantee that Hillary Clinton would have gotten your vote?
Yeah.
Or do you foresee a reasonable scenario
She did it
that
again.
wouldn't happen?
She did it again.
No, I mean, I think that we're just at a moment where we absolutely have to support the Democratic nominee against President Trump. Absolutely, without question.
So this isn't anything new. Let me get this part out the way. I agree that Ocasio-Cortez should have at least extracted something from Cuomo or the DNC before giving her endorsement. The people making this argument are assuming she didn't get anything out of it. We don't know that for sure, but I'm not assuming she did, especially seeing how gaffe-prone she seems to be. I'm just saying, let's not pretend to know for a fact that she didn't get some sort of concession from Cuomo or the DNC. That said, Jimmy Dore presents Ocasio-Cortez endorsement as some sort of after effect of being co-opted by the DNC. But this is a false narrative. 3 months ago she was already pretty much saying blue no matter who. I couldn't find the original CNN segment, so I'm taking it from Sam Seder. Jimmy Dore's overall arguments make no sense. On one hand, he argues that the only way Democrats are going to learn is if they lose seats. On the other hand, he complains how they are now taking money from the oil industry. But wait, they just lost a bunch of seats and now he's complaining about their actions. This flies in the face of the argument that these losses teach them the right lesson. Another problem with Dore's argument is that his assumptions aren't based on reality. He argues that not enough progress has been made through new movements like the Justice Democrats and that the right path forward is through third parties. But what progress has been made by third parties? Furthermore, we haven't even had our first midterm election yet. Why not wait and see how these more progressive Democrats do and see what progress is made afterwards? Dore refused to vote for Clinton and no doubt convinced several others to do the same. Then when she lost, he turns around to say I told you so. This is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now, here's the thing. I get that Clinton is impossible to like, but she wouldn't have appointed someone like Judge Kavanaugh. She wouldn't have signed into law tax cuts for the wealthy and for corporations. She wouldn't have started trade wars, nor pulled out of the Paris climate agreements. She wouldn't have gutted the EPA nor pushed the encroachment onto native lands. Sure, she wouldn't have created single-payer, but by electing Donald Trump, we went in the opposite direction. Yes, she would have continued the terrible drone strikes, but we got that with Donald Trump anyway. She probably wouldn't have been able to increase taxes on the wealthy and on corporations given the hostile Congress, but at least she could have vetoed the tax cuts. Dore also refuses to hold third-party candidates to the same standard he holds Democrats. He wants to blame Hillary's loss to Trump on the Democratic establishment. But wait, what about the role Jill Stein had on helping Trump win? What about the role Ralph Nader had on helping George W. Bush win? You see? Dore is trying to have it both ways. He wants to blame Democrats for losses that third parties had a hand in. All of this rhetoric about the status quo is nonsense. People like Dore are just labeling whatever currently exists as the status quo and are ignoring the plethora of different decisions that would have been made if Democrats controlled the legislative and executive branches. Then there is the useless rhetoric like I don't want incremental change. Well, neither do I, but Dore's alternative is to further cannibalize left-wing voting and empower incremental change towards the right. Not backing Democrats increases the number of Republicans winning. And again, when Republicans win, people like Dore say I told you so, when in fact their very own actions help make that Republican victory a reality. It's like saying you want to make more money, but you don't want to work your way up to a high-paying job nor create a successful business. Why? Because that's too incremental. So instead you're going to spend all of your money on lottery tickets or at the casino, because that will bring major change. Something else I keep hearing is that Democrats are weak. I agree, but I think this is exaggerated. Democrats aren't willing to burn the house down the way the GOP is. I don't know if this is good or bad, but it certainly gives the GOP a competitive advantage when it comes to ramming through their proposals. And just keep in mind, when the government is paralyzed like this, it works in the GOP's favor. Remember, they're the ones who claim government doesn't work. So when they implement their self-fulfilling prophecy, it helps them. The far right blames the Democrats. And the far left also seems more likely to blame the Democrats for not being stronger and more aggressive rather than blaming the GOP for their scorched earth methods in the first place. So it seems like a lose-lose for the Democratic Party. Furthermore, there is this false equivalency between Republicans and Democrats. Saying they are the same requires focusing only on their similarities and ignoring all of the party line voting that occurs. Voting along party lines has only increased. Not a single Democrat voted for the recent tax cuts. With more Democrats in place, the bill could have been defeated. Perhaps we'd have gotten a revised version that only cut taxes for middle and lower income earners. My personal suggestion is that progressives give this full election cycle a chance. It's only been about 2 years since both Sanders and Trump proved the old conventional wisdom to be wrong, or at least that it could be circumvented. We are now seeing candidates raise small dollar donations that rival or even surpass the corporate donations of their right-wing counterparts. If these people win, they won't be in debt to corporate interests. Obama just came out and endorsed single-payer. As the de facto figurehead of the Democratic Party, this should push the Democrats in that direction overall. Rather than pew-pewing a symbolic gesture, why not take it as a small win and see what happens in November and beyond? One thing is for certain, if the Democrats do get swept in November, it won't lead to progressive change. It will give the Republicans continued power to cut even more taxes on the wealthy and on corporations. It will be incremental, or perhaps even major change in a direction you don't like. I also happen to think that the most effective thing you can do is to educate moderates on U.S. economic history. Once open-minded people understand that taxes on the wealthy and corporations have been drastically reduced, that unions have been gutted, and that this has led to Gilded Age level income disparity, their eyes begin to open. I know, because this worked on me, and I have convinced countless others with these facts. I was once a staunch centrist who assumed that the truth lied somewhere in the middle. But then I was educated on the fact that the right has gotten their way for 40 years. So, if you're struggling to get by at $40,000 a year and you think somehow that SJWs, feminists, and quote-unquote welfare moms are the source of your problems, you're wrong. You're just being divided and conquered. Your share of the economic pie has decreased so that the wealthy can keep a larger portion of the wealth being generated by this economy that we all participate in. This is not some unavoidable consequence of modern capitalism, as can be seen by the fact that this problem is most pronounced here in the United States. It is the result of changes in legislation that has cut taxes on corporations and on the wealthy and driven unions into near extinction. Wealth inequality itself isn't the problem, of course, it's the levels we've reached. Your wages are falling behind increased costs of living. Take a look at your paycheck. Do you really think that keeping an additional 10% will make any noticeable impact on your standard of living? What if you were making twice the amount you're currently making? You see, because that is the actual problem. Had wages kept up with rising costs of living and economic growth, your paycheck would be roughly twice the size as it currently is. So, keep blaming feminists and lower income people all you want, they aren't the source of your economic problems.